Alright, so we all know that Luffy ate a devil fruit. That's no surprise, it's literally the central plot device for One Piece. What is surprising, though, is what if instead of eating a devil fruit, Luffy ate a Saiyan tail? Now there are some complications with this idea, but it could also be pretty damn awesome. So let's discuss this whole concept and figure out how it would play out in today's episode of What If. If you guys remember, back in the very early days of Dragon Ball, Goku had a tail. In fact, he had one until he was about 9 years old. That's when he fought Raditz and got injured enough to where his tail was knocked off. As for why Saiyans have tails, well, it's because they are in fact a type of ape. The reason why they grow tails is because it helps them keep their balance while fighting, especially when they use their martial arts abilities. Now, in terms of how exactly a Saiyan grows a tail, it actually varies depending on which iteration of the Saiyan you ask. For example, in Dragon Ball GT, Pan has a tail at birth, while Trunks didn't get his tail until he first went Super Saiyan. Then there's also Bulla, who didn't grow a tail until she was a teenager. There's not really any consistent rules when it comes to Saiyan biology, so we'll just assume that Luffy growing a tail is dependent on him tapping into his Saiyan potential, and when that happens, he'll be able to grow one instantly. But the question then becomes, how does someone eat a tail? Well, we've seen plenty of times that people in One Piece can be pretty damn creative when it comes to eating things. We're talking about a world where people eat live fish cooked inside their own mouths, so a tail should be no different. Plus, there's always the option of just blending it up, like a smoothie or something. Either way, the logistics of eating a tail won't be too hard. The real problem will be finding one. The only Saiyan currently living in the One Piece world is, of course, Broly, who would probably run away from the Straw Hats if they approached him with a blender. But there are plenty of other options. The first one being Saiyan pods. These things are basically space eggs that were sent to planet Vegeta before its destruction. We know that Monkey D. Garp managed to retrieve one of these pods back in the God Valley incident, which means that it's entirely possible that there are still more of them lying around somewhere. Heck, maybe Garp even kept his pod and gave it to Luffy after he returned from his Roger quest. That would be pretty damn cool, actually. Another option is the Saiyan refugees. During the events of Dragon Ball Super, we learned that there were a good number of Saiyans who refused to fight in the Tournament of Power. It's likely that some of them decided to leave the universe instead. Maybe they landed on One Piece's Earth and became pirates themselves. Pirates who, by the way, would be insanely powerful. I mean, imagine a pirate crew that could destroy entire planets. They'd be unstoppable. But regardless of how Luffy manages to obtain a tail, the moment he eats it, his body will immediately begin to change. His hair will spike upward, his eyebrows will become more pronounced, and his teeth will sharpen into fangs. He would likely become much stronger and faster than before, but he would also become much more animalistic. This is because Saiyans aren't just super strong, they're also blessed with a ton of stamina. They can easily go for extended periods without needing to sleep or eat, and they possess an almost primal drive to fight. It's what pushes them to constantly train and push themselves to become stronger. In fact, it might become so bad that Luffy literally turns into a beast whenever he gets into a fight, similar to the Hulk. It could also be that Luffy's personality completely changes, turning him into someone more akin to Broly, someone who is kind-hearted, but also doesn't really know how to control their power. After all, remember that Saiyans are basically raised from a young age to be ruthless killers, so it wouldn't really make sense for Luffy to remain the same after consuming such a powerful source of energy. But despite any drawbacks, Luffy would become an absolute monster. He'd gain access to techniques like the Kamehameha, which would be perfect for naval battles, or the Spirit Bomb, which would allow him to defeat enemies far stronger than himself. Plus, you can't forget about the forms either. Imagine Luffy powering up to Super Saiyan Blue and using it to send the Marines flying. Hell, maybe after he consumes the tail, he gains access to all the forms at once. That would be insane. Not to mention the forms would also grant Luffy new abilities, like Super Saiyan's increased strength and speed or Super Saiyan 2's energy blasts. And then there's Super Saiyan 3, which grants the user the ability to fly. Finally, With Super Saiyan Blue, not only would Luffy be able to move at the speed of light, but he could also use energy to negate incoming attacks. It would make him nearly invincible. Oh, and I almost forgot. There's also Ultra Instinct, which would allow him to perfectly dodge any attack thrown his way. Basically, if Luffy were to eat a tail and gain access to Ultra Instinct, he would single-handedly be able to defeat the entire Marine fleet. Maybe he could even take on the entire world government at once and come out victorious. So that's how things would play out if Luffy ate a Saiyan tail instead of a devil fruit. He'd become a literal god, capable of destroying entire planets with ease. Personally, I think it would be really cool if Oda somehow incorporated this into the main story. I feel like it would open up so many new possibilities, like having Luffy fight against other overpowered beings from different universes. Plus, I just want to see how far he could push his Saiyan powers. Would he be able to achieve something like Super Saiyan God? Could he tap into the power of the mortals in One Piece's universe to perform an Ultra Instinct? Sign me up. However, as much as I love Dragon Ball, I also love One Piece. So I would never want to see Luffy lose his devil fruit powers. Gomu Gomu no Mi is just as important to the series as Renji's Bakugo or Naruto's Kyuubi. But hey, maybe there's a way we could combine both concepts. What if instead of a tail, Luffy ate a devil fruit that gave him Saiyan abilities? We'll have to save that idea for another day, though. Anyways, that's all I've got for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time.